Hey, what's up? Parker Welbeck here with FulltimeFilmmaker.com, and due to popular demand after posting my iPhone XS Max cinematic footage video, today I'm going to be comparing the video quality of the iPhone XS Max to the all-new Google Pixel 3 XL, along with the Samsung Note9, who is also representing the Samsung S9 Plus, since they essentially have the same camera, and I'll also be throwing in the red hydrogen. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other great smartphones out there that would stack up well in this shootout, like the Huawei Mate 20, the LG V40, the OnePlus 6T, etc. But I just went with the ones that were most requested by all of you. Also, just an FYI, I bought all of these with my own money, so the only bias I have is the fact that I'm already an iPhone user, but up until about 5 years ago, all I used was Android. So I've been in both camps, and I will be as objective as possible. So for this shootout, I ran 13 different video tests based on categories that I personally feel are most important to me as an everyday smartphone video user and as a professional filmmaker. The winner of each category will get 3 points, second place will get 2 points, third place will get 1, and last place will get 0. So without further ado, let's dive into our first test. To start things off, I wanted to do a test for the everyday average consumer to see which smartphone is easiest to get quality video image when you open up the native camera app and just start shooting using the all auto settings. As you can see from the footage with the all auto settings, the iPhone seems to have the most accurate and vibrant color balance and best exposure, while the Pixel 3 and Note 9 have similar exposure, but personally, I like the Note 9's color better. The Pixel just tends to make skin tones a little too green for my liking, and the red, for whatever reason, just really struggles with the auto exposure. For test number 2, we catered more towards professionals who want to have the manual control, so which smartphone has the best manual camera app? I found Samsung's native camera app to be the easiest to control manual settings using their Pro tab. Their user interface for changing settings is super easy and my personal favorite. The Red came in second place as they also have the ability to control manual settings. However, their app was a little bit less intuitive to me than Samsung's. Pixel came in third as they allow you to adjust white balance manually but no other settings, and iPhone comes in last as they don't have any ability to change manual settings within the native camera app. They do let you manually change the exposure but not exact ISO or shutter speed settings. That's the downside of iPhone being the easiest to use, is that it's not very customizable. For test number 3, I pulled out my favorite app for filming cinematic footage on a smartphone, Filmic Pro, and wanted to see if all the phones worked equally well with this app. The Filmic Pro app used to only work with iPhones, but it since has come out for Android as well. So they all work with the app, however, iPhone seems to work the best. For whatever reason, some features just don't work in the app for Android phones, like utilizing slow motion frame rates. The options just aren't available even though the phone is capable. So iPhone wins this test, with Samsung and Red tying for second, and the Pixel takes last because it had some crashing issues, and when reopening after a crash, it reset all of the settings. So just some things to keep in mind if you're a Filmic Pro user. For test number 4, I wanted to see which camera gives you the best true-to-life color accuracy. As I mentioned in the first test, the iPhone seems to do the best job at displaying the colors that I was seeing with my own eye. Samsung comes in a close second, but they did tend to make tones warmer than what my eye was seeing, and the Pixel seems to be a little too warm and a little bit too green with skin tones. The Pixel is also a little bit washed out, not quite as vibrant and contrasty as the iPhone and Note 9. And then the Red gives you the flattest image with more muted colors that just don't look that great out of camera. And because it's such a compressed image, you're not going to be able to bring very much of that color back in post without the image falling apart, so I'm not sure why they kept that image that flat. Test number 5 is dynamic range, or the camera's ability to capture both shadow and highlight details. After running a few tests, the iPhone showed the best dynamic range thanks to their new HDR software. The Red came in second, probably mostly because it shoots a flatter image, so it does retain more detail than the more contrasty picture profiles that the other 3 shoot. Pixel 3 came in third, and the Samsung seemed to have just slightly worse dynamic range than the Pixel. Test number 6 tested out the different focal length options on the back of the phones. The iPhone and the Note 9 both have a standard camera and a tighter focal length camera, and the tighter focal length on both seemed to work well, but Samsung seemed to have a slightly better quality in my opinion, showing less artifacting. The Red also had a second camera, however, it only seemed to work in photo mode. If it does work in video mode, there's no easy way to switch between them, so Red comes in third. And the Pixel comes in last as it only has the one camera on the back. Test number 7 is the front-facing camera quality and focal length options. I named the Pixel the winner on this category because it's the only one that has multiple cameras on the front. One standard and one wide angle, whereas the other 3 just have the standard one camera. I put Samsung in second place over the iPhone because the iPhone has a little bit too tight of a focal length in my opinion, and the Red gets last place again for having the flattest image that doesn't look that great straight at a camera. Test number 8 is low light performance. I turned off all my studio light, so the only light was coming from the computer monitor, and with all the cameras set to auto settings, you can see that the Pixel does the best job at seeing in the dark and giving you the brightest exposure. exposure. I'd say the Red took second place, the Samsung took third, and the iPhone is the darkest. And that is something that I've noticed with the iPhone, is that you just can't shoot in very dark situations. It's kind of worthless. Test number 9 is the in-camera stabilization. When walking with each of these phones handheld, which is 90% of the time that people will be filming with their phones, how good is the image stabilization software? Now, I personally thought the Pixel won this test as well. Their stabilization software seems to do the best job at giving you the smoothest image when shooting handheld. The iPhone didn't seem too far behind. They've definitely stepped up their game from the 8 series with much better image stabilization. The Red took third, and the Samsung I gave last place because their stabilization software seemed to overcompensate and give you warpy jello effects, making the footage almost unusable at times. Test number 10 is the compatibility with using a gimbal, particularly the FreeFly Movi, which I think is the best smartphone stabilizer on the market right now. So I wanted to see how easily each of these phones can get set up with and how well the camera stabilization works in conjunction with the gimbal stabilization. So after running a few tests, it did seem that all 4 phones did a good job at giving you smooth footage without any signs of jello or jitters. The only issue in this test was with the Red and the Samsung getting some of the gimbal in the frame sometimes because of the camera placement of the Red and the Samsung phones being more in the center and farther down on the phone. This causes the gimbal to more easily get into the frame. So iPhone and Pixel tie for first, and Samsung gets third, and Red takes last because it's also the heaviest and largest of the 4 phones, which makes it harder to balance without having to use any counterweights. Test number 11 is the audio test. Which phone has the best microphone for picking up quality audio? So I tested out each phone at the exact same distance from my mouth, being about 2 to 3 feet away, and take a listen to see which you like best. This is the audio that you're hearing from the Samsung Note 9. This is the audio that you're hearing from the Google Pixel 3. This is the audio that you're hearing from the iPhone XS Max, and this is the audio that you're hearing from the Red Hydrogen 1. This was the first time that I realized how good the iPhone's microphone is. And fun fact, in the latest Mission Impossible movie, there's a scene where Alec Baldwin voiced over the word, "Go," from his iPhone, and that was the audio they used for the final movie. So phones are definitely coming a long way. But anyway, Samsung takes second place, and Red took third place with what sounded way too compressed, and surprisingly the Pixel sounded terrible, giving me a ton of background static, and it just seemed a lot quieter overall. Test number 12 is 4K slow motion. Which phone can shoot the highest frame rate at 4K, and which one looks the best? Samsung and iPhone are the only 2 that can shoot 4K at 60 frames per second, and they are both pretty similar in quality. The Pixel and Red tied for third as they both only shoot 4K up to 30 frames per second. And then our final test, number 13, is HD slow motion. Which phone can do the slowest motion and or have the best quality slow motion? The Samsung wins this category as it gives you a whopping 480 frames per second in 4-second bursts and 960 frames per second in 2-second bursts. These are both very low quality, but it is cool to have those options. Samsung also shoots at 240 frames per second at 1080p, as does the iPhone. So the iPhone comes in second. On both of these phones, at 240 frames per second doesn't look great, but it is good enough for like home videos. And then the Pixel and the Red both only shoot up to 60 frames at 1080 and 120 frames at 720p. And as you'll see, that 120 frame per second option on both of these phones isn't very good. And on the Red, it is extra terrible. So third place goes to Pixel, and once again, Red takes the back seat. Now, there's plenty of other tests we could have run, but those are the tests that were most relevant to me and things that I would look for in a smartphone camera. And before we tally up all the points and declare a winner, I want to award some minus points for various things that I didn't like about each phone. -1 point goes to the iPhone because the HDR feature sometimes makes skin tones look fake. -1 point also to the iPhone for shifting the color balance and auto settings sometimes. -1 point from the Samsung for having focus hunting issues the most often. And -1 point from the Red for showing significant noise in good lighting situations for no reason. Okay, so let's now tally up all the points and see which camera, according to my subjective and imperfect point system, wins as the best overall video camera in a smartphone. The iPhone comes in first place with the Samsung not far behind, the Pixel just behind the Samsung, and the Red gets a participation trophy. But there's one more test I want to run. How much will each of these phones cost you at their starting points? Well, the old adage that you get what you pay for seems to match up pretty well here because the iPhone is the most expensive, the Samsung is just behind that, and the Pixel just behind the Samsung, and the Red is never mind, the Red is the most expensive of all of them. Okay, so 3 points to the Pixel for being the best price, 2 points for the Samsung, 1 point for the iPhone, and Red Why are you so expensive? So there you have the final scoreboard. Obviously, I'm an Apple guy, so naturally I think they have the best camera. That's a big reason why I buy them, but I don't think the Samsung is that far behind, and they're obviously better in some of the categories. Now, if I were to buy an Android today, I'd probably get the Samsung. Pixel is a great option too. It's just lacking in some of the specs that I care about as a video guy, and I make fun of the Red, but it is their first attempt at a smartphone, so you can't expect them to compete with these other guys that are coming out with now like their 10th, 11th versions of their phones. But there you have it, guys. There's a quick look at the pros and cons in the video quality between these 4 smartphones. No matter which one you're sporting, you can create cinematic footage with any of them if you know how to use these tools to their fullest potential. So I will soon be making a mini course showing how I shoot my smartphone footage to optimize the quality and cinematicness of the images. And if you want to learn more about my workflow, you can learn everything I know by visiting fulltimefilmmaker.com to join our online film school. Or if you want to learn my top 10 secrets to achieving cinematic shots and how to make money making video, you can watch my free 1-hour filmmaking training by clicking over here. But that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this fun comparison. Links are in the description to all the gear I use. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos just like this. And if you have any further questions, please let me know.